Hello, my name is Gil Zilkha. Welcome to my channel. This is my series entitled Essential Classical Music, where we look at the best recordings of the major classical music works. This video is taken out of my larger video covering the major symphonies. If you enjoy this, I hope you will go over and look at that larger one. Just know that you don't have to watch it all in one big gulp. It is divided into chapters. It's real easy to just click through and choose whichever symphony that you're curious about. So I hope you enjoy it. All right, so we're only going to do one more Mahler symphony, and this one is, for me, the Mahler masterpiece, up there with the Beethoven Ninth and the Bruckner Eighth among masterpieces. The Ninth Symphony is just incredible. There's a movie, I think it's called Birdman, with Michael Keaton, that features the beginning of this symphony. So if you know that movie, you may know, you may already unknowingly like this symphony, or maybe you've checked it out based on that. But it's just gorgeous and dramatic and deep, and the final movement particularly, the whole thing is just wonderful. So my first recommendation for this is, if I can find it here, well, no surprise, Barbirolli again in the box set, also available as a single CD. Now this one actually is recorded with the Berlin Philharmonic, not one that you associate with Barbirolli very often. It was recorded in 1964. Sounds very good. This is actually a Japanese remastering, which I think has actually improved the sound, which you should also get with this Warner box as well, because this actually came out after this, so that should not be a problem, the sound quality. Barbirolli just, he was a consummate interpreter of Mahler, knew exactly how to pace things, how to milk the emotions in just the right way, and this Mahler Ninth is no exception. However, I do want to bring your attention to a live recording, which is even, in my opinion, a more emotional experience than that studio recording, and that's this one. This is the Turin Radio Italian Symphony Orchestra, recorded live in 1960. It's a little bit noisy. There's some ill-timed coughs and so on, but it's a pretty, pretty clear, present recording nonetheless. The playing is maybe a little bit scrappy, but oh boy, as a Mahler Ninth, this to me is just an incredible experience. Maybe not the recording to live with as your only recording, but definitely one to hear if you love the Mahler Ninth. However, with a piece as great as this one, you're going to want to at least hear other versions. And there may not be a more celebrated, famous version than this one. Karajan with the Berlin Philharmonic, recorded live in 1982. Now, Karajan's Mahler can be a little bit controversial for some. Karajan was known for being glitzy. He loved glean and the sound quality. He was considered sometimes superficial, you might say. I don't agree with that. I wouldn't have been recommending him for all these different recordings if I felt that way. But the point is that the combination of Karajan and Mahler can sometimes be a little anachronistic for some people, because Mahler was, the opposite of that. He was, introspective, depressing in many ways. So a lot of people, this recording, as celebrated as it is, can be somewhat controversial in some ways. But I think that this is a fantastic version of this symphony. It's Karajan at his most inspired, most dramatic. The Berlin Philharmonic sounds amazing. I mean, that's why this is such a celebrated recording. And he actually did do it in studio with them in 1980, and that's a good recording. But here you really do hear the difference in the emotions, just being that much more palpable, and the commitment. Yes, it sounds beautiful. Just because it sounds beautiful doesn't mean that it's superficial or not as emotional or dramatic. I think it still is one of the best Mahler nights you can get. Boy, in the final movement, when there's that moment where the strings are just by themselves, just like that, you can hear them just digging in. It's just really a fantastic moment. So you're going to want to hear this one. However, we do have one that's more recent, also with the Berlin Philharmonic, and this is with Sir Simon Rattle. This is recorded in 2007. And I almost want to say, as an introduction to the Mahler Ninth, this may want to be the one that you hear first, because it just sounds so good. And Rattle, as I mentioned with his second, he really loved delving into these into the introspection of Mahler's music. And so he never sounded superficial. There may be some more dramatic versions around, but Rattle has a way of pacing the symphony that everything sounds just right. And with the detail and the sound quality, it all really comes through. So this is Mahler Ninth. I mean, it's such a great symphony. There are a lot of great recordings. I think this definitely belongs among them. As does Klemperer with the New Philharmonia. This was recorded in 1967. And with Klemperer, you get just a really gripping, dramatic performance. Of course, what do you expect with Klemperer? He always has that sort of grounded gravitas about him that compels you to keep listening. And so that almost has there's almost a built-in feeling of seriousness that you get whenever you hear Klemperer conducting. And so with this symphony, you get that. And the orchestra is really inspired in this recording as well. It's really one of the great Mahler nights. As is this recording from the other side of the Iron Curtain, from the Moscow Philharmonic. This is with Kirill Kondrashin. It was recorded in 1964. And the thing that really sets this apart is just the go-for-broke emotions of this performance. They really milk it. It's really exciting. If you love the Mahler Ninth already, this may not be your first choice, but if you love the Mahler Ninth already and you want to hear it done in a way that is just to the limits emotionally, this is a really strong one. As is this one from the Czech Philharmonic and Karel Anschel. This was recorded in 1966, and it sounds really good in the Superfon sound. Anschel's version is not as overtly dramatic as Kondrashin, but it's beautifully played, beautifully paced. It's got this kind of starkness to it. In other words, it's not like maybe as overtly dramatic as some, but it's got this quality to it that that makes the drama come forth in a different way, if that makes sense. It's just a really gorgeous version of the Mahler Ninth that you're also going to want to check out. However, I have one more choice. This is the historic choice, and if the Karajan version is not the most famous version of the Mahler Ninth, then this one may be. This is from 1938. Bruno Walter with the Vienna Philharmonic. Many people know the story that this was right before he fled before the Nazi takeover of Austria. This is just absolutely one of the most intense performances of the Mahler Ninth. You can just feel it. You can feel it in the orchestra now. I understand that some people don't like the idea of projecting the historic circumstances onto what you hear. It could be just something they had for lunch that day, right? But more than likely than not, there was something going on in that concert hall, given what was in the process of happening. Regardless, the emotion is just palpable. You hear it. There's just this incredible intensity and inspiration, And the combination of that with a piece like this, it's just something you're going to want to hear. To me, the only thing that's controversial about this recording is more Walter's interpretation, which is also true of his later recording. He kind of cuts the coda, the ending of the finale, a little bit short, especially to someone compared to someone like, say, Barbirolli, to where I feel like the full impact of it is not felt like it could be. It's just me. I know others have commented on that as well, but that's not to take away from the fact that this is still one of the greatest recordings of the Mahler Ninth. The sound is actually not bad for 1938. You can hear everything. There is a cleaner recording of a transfer of it than this one. This is the EMI. There is one by Dutton. Dutton Laboratories, if you ever see historical recordings remastered by Dutton, by the way, they tend to be first class, very cleaned up, almost amazing what they do. I will say, though, the one drawback to that is you sometimes lose the fullness of the sound, and in this case, I actually prefer the EMI. I think I'm getting more of the integrity of what was actually going on in the performance when I listen to this one. Minor quibble. The Dutton is still very fine, especially if you want to hear less static and noise. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, I hope you'll also take time to click the like and subscribe buttons. And with that, I want to wish you all a great day and happy listening.